Do you know when Election Day is? If you said November 6th, I'm sorry to say you're wrong. Election Day really starts around September 28th. That's because Election Day isn't just one day. It's a series of overlapping elections, vote by mail, early voting, and finally traditional Election Day. The trend is clear. Voters have been migrating to vote by mail and early voting. In some cases, like Broward County, more than 60% of all votes will be cast before Election Day. So the real question now is, when should you begin your marketing to voters? Vote by mail ballots will arrive in households on September 28th. Do you start here? No, because if you haven't ramped up your marketing campaign, voters haven't had enough time to get to know you. You should start marketing here, Labor Day weekend. That's when voters first start paying attention to your messages. Starting here gives you about 3 weeks to talk to voters before ballots arrive in their mailboxes. Now, early voting is a bit trickier because the number of days of early voting are set by the state and implemented by the county supervisors of elections. The last day of early voting is 3 days before Election Day. That'll be November 3rd. But the state allows supervisors discretion to add a day 2 days before the election. The supervisor can choose to add additional days, but they must begin no sooner than 10 days before Election Day. Supervisors can then add up to 5 additional early voting days, but they must begin no sooner than 15 days before the election. Now we're all the way back to October 21st. But when should you start reaching early voters? Right here, on October 8th. This gives you 2 full weeks to reach early voters before they go to the polls. Where does that leave you with Election Day voters? Well, if history holds, only about 35% of voters will be casting ballots at the polls. You can begin marketing to Election Day voters 3 to 4 weeks out, anywhere between October 8th and the 15th. Earlier if you have the money, a little later if things are tight. You can't win an election when mail-in and early voting begins, but you can lose an election by ignoring these established voting patterns.